My most vivid memory of the time period where we heard that Laci was missing was that day. I was working for a local station in the San Francisco Bay Area, and we were dispatched down to Modesto to go cover this missing pregnant lady story. And I remember going up to the house, where Scott and Laci were living with their dog Mackenzie, and knocking on the door, and Scott comes out, and he doesn't want to be on television. And this was, to me, was so bizarre, because most people who have a missing loved one are screaming for attention. Please help us find our loved one. That wasn't the case with him. He was the direct opposite, said, please don't show me, gave us a flyer and kind of shoot us on our way. And my photographer and I both looked at each other and went, okay, this is a story that we are going to continue to cover. Now, did he do that because he had a girlfriend, which we of course didn't know about at the time, or what? But that is by far my most vivid memory of that time period, because I never experienced anything like it. A loved one is missing and you don't want to participate in media coverage. For us, my photographer and I, that was the moment where we were thinking, we're going to stick with this story. By far the most memorable trial moment was Amber Frey, when she and Gloria Allred showed up at the courthouse and she got up and testified. It was a game changer, because at the time people thought, well, geez, Peterson's got a very good chance of walking here. But this woman, Amber Frey, completely changed the trial. She told this harrowing story about basically falling in love with Scott Peterson, and he didn't tell her that he was married. In fact, he told her, according to her, that he had just lost his wife. Then they played the tapes of him lying to Amber Frey, saying, oh, I'm in Paris, it's beautiful, a New Year's celebration here. And the courtroom was absolutely riveted. It changed the trial 180 degrees. Amber Frey was the one moment of trial that completely changed it and completely sticks with me. I remember it like it was yesterday. So you think about it, back then there were no Ring doorbells. It was just a different, there were no surveillance video. Some gas stations had surveillance video, but it was always grainy. It was just inside. This never would have happened the same way today as it did then, in that the Petersons would argue Laci would have been seen walking Mackenzie the dog. Scott would never have been prosecuted had there been surveillance. And from the Roaches' standpoint and the state's standpoint, Scott would have been seen likely with his wife's dead body in the back of the pickup truck somewhere in this route, this big blue tarp in the back of a pickup truck. It would have been a totally different scenario, and we would know for sure what happened if indeed the exact same circumstances happened today with just surveillance. Surveillance would have made a huge difference. People get murdered all the time, obviously. This case was different. Why? Happened near the holidays. Laci Peterson was a beautiful, smiling, pregnant woman who was missing. It was a mystery. Where could this woman be? And there wasn't a lot going on at the time in terms of news, the news cycle. This is right, literally Christmas Eve. So it got a lot of play from the very beginning, and then suspicion starts to center around Scott, the guy who was going on all of these searches. It changed, and then Amber Frey enters the picture. This was like no other case at the time, because the country was absolutely fascinated by this. They wanted to see it to the end, and there were so many people that hated Scott Peterson to the core. It added this element that was very rare, and it has only happened a few times really over the last couple decades in terms of the general public being dialed into a case. The decision, Scott Peterson not getting a new trial. Am I surprised? No. in that he's Scott Peterson, and let's face it, this is someone who is notorious, someone who has still 20 years later has, people just absolutely despise this person. And this wasn't about the case. This was about the conduct of a juror, a specific juror, Rochelle Neese. Bottom line is, this was a heavy lift for the defense to achieve what would have been a home run, a miracle to get a new trial, and he's not getting it. What do I think is next for Scott Peterson? The family is going to continue to fight. Janie Peterson, his sister-in-law, studied to be an attorney. She's helping with his defense. They're going to take it back to the California Supreme Court with the information that they now have from this investigation into Rochelle Neise, and then it'll be on to the federal system to try to get relief. They still believe in their heart that Scott Peterson was wrongly convicted, that he did not kill Laci and his son, Connor.